Being a music producer is 50% producing music, 50% communication skills. You may have heard the quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is totally true. So let's talk about some things that producers should never say in the studio to artists, so they don't remember that you made them feel like garbage. Now, number one is something you should say if you want people to think you're a real jerk. And that's, you'll never make it in this business if. This is one of those phrases that you should just delete from your vocabulary. For one, it comes across as condescending, and two, it's usually not even true. While we like to think that our experience in the music business is representative of the entire industry, and that we have impeccable tastes, the fact is there are successful folks making what you might think are mistakes all the time. The same way that there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's, there is no one path to making it in the music industry. And even if there were, that isn't always everyone's goal. If you're in the studio thinking too much about the business side of the art, flexing your experience to the point where you're using this phrase as your way to communicate how the artist should or shouldn't make music, according to you, you may have lost the plot. So I've talked to more than a few artists who have worked with big time producers that have used that kind of language to convince them to do things their way. And it usually just leaves a bad taste in the artist's mouth. So just say what you think without prefacing it with, you'll never make it in this business if. Now, number two is another one that musicians have told me irks them, and that is, don't worry, I've already got a guy. So let me explain. Let's say a band comes through your studio and you spend a day recording drums. It goes really well, everyone's stoked on the drum sounds, the performances are grooving. Then on the way out, the drummer says to you, hey, by the way, if you ever need a session drummer, feel free to hit me up. At that point, the producer says, oh, don't worry, thanks, but I already have someone that I use. Well, now the good vibes balloon is totally deflated. And this is just one example, but you can adapt it to just about any scenario. The fact is, in this situation, the producer is saying no before a question is even being asked, if that makes sense. Like the drummer isn't asking the producer if they think they'll be hiring them for session work in the near future. They're just letting them know that they'd be open to doing it. The producer could just say, heck yeah, if anything comes up, then I'll let you know. Because let's face it, while you may have a guy, they might get a job on an oil rig tomorrow and be gone for the next 6 months. Or they might decide music isn't for them anymore. Or someone might need a drummer on your go-to drummer's birthday and you need to find a backup. Or maybe there's no world where you ever see yourself hiring this person. But even still, there is nothing wrong with the old smile and wave. Now, one communication skill that is key for producers is expressing your taste as taste, not as the truth. For example, if someone is interested in hiring you for a project, or they ask what you think about another local band, or really any situation involving real people, not like celebrities, you don't want to frame your opinions as, this is bad, they suck, I hate this. Now, I'm not saying you can't have feelings or that you should sugarcoat everything, but there's a big difference between, I'm not going to take this job because I think this song is bad, and I'm not sure I'd be a good fit for this job. I think someone else could capture your vision better. Obviously, that's a pretty stark example, but there are times where it may be more subtle, and it would just be appropriate to pad your words a little bit. Because being brutally honest is certainly one communication style, but I've worked with more than a few folks who are more brutal than they are honest. And by the way, this video is brought to you by me. If you haven't heard, I've got a book coming out at the end of this month, and it's called The Producer Planner. Here, let me grab it. This is a sample. And it is a custom planner designed for music producers to stay organized. Plus, it has a bunch of fun stuff in the back, like split sheets, input lists, and a bunch more. But I want you to be able to start using this system now. So if you go to the link below, I'll email you a PDF version of the book right now, and you can print out your own planner for free. And then I'll email you again when the real thing is out, so you don't forget. All right, back to the list. Nailed it. So when it comes to making suggestions on arrangements and compositions, one thing you probably shouldn't say to artists is, it's good music theory to do it this way. I've covered this before in another video, so I won't go too deep into it. But in my opinion, music theory is about having a common language to describe things, communicate, not about having a guide that dictates what you should or shouldn't do within your music. So if you don't think something sounds good in a certain context, or there's a way to phrase a lick or a melody that might sound better, just say that. Don't pull the music theory card to try to get your way. Now, this next one is a big one, and I've noticed this tendency in lots of folks, and sometimes I catch myself doing it too, and that is going right for the negative. Let's say you work with a singer and they write great melodies, they have awesome pitch, they're a good hang, they made great coffee, they brought cookies to the studio, but also they rush a little sometimes when they sing. Now, if someone asks you what it's like working with them, you might find yourself answering like this. Oh yeah, they're cool and all, but I will say they definitely rush a little when they're recording. We had to do a lot of takes of one song because they just couldn't find the groove. But other than that, it was good. Again, that's just an example, but that question didn't really need that type of answer. Imagine how much more positive energy you could put into the world if you said, oh, they're great. I'm really pleased with how the song came out. Plus, we had an awesome time recording it. They even brought cookies on the last day. Now, if someone is asking for specifics because they're looking to make a hiring decision, then sure, you can be a little more frank. But in regular, casual conversation, there's usually not a need to get into the negatives, especially if it's just totally unprompted. So hopefully that helps you with communication in the studio. And hopefully we'll be a little more honest, but a little less brutal. But if not, watch this video next if you want to hear my brutally honest advice for music producers like you.